Hello, dearest friends, beautiful souls of love and light. This is Nenari, Princess of the Sea, coming to you with another video on the Twin Soul Sacred Path journey. And in this video, we are going to talk about something that is imperative for the Twin Soul journey, yet is also imperative for all of our relationships as light workers and on the journey of all relationships. And this has to do with automatic programming and also about being in the now, being in that space of love. And what does that truly mean? And something that I have done in the work that I have done, not only on myself in my own journey, throughout the many years that I have been working on this, to shift automatic programming within me, and also within the Twin Soul Sacred Path journey, as well as the work that I do with many who I mentor, is to shift those automatic programmings and really come into the space of the heart and being in love. And how is that done, you wonder? As a meditational hypnotherapist, hypnosis is a wonderful way to actually change that. And hypnosis is something that you can do very quickly. It's not something that you actually have to do very slowly over a long period of time. We can shift our automatic programming quite rather quickly. It takes us wanting to, a desire to wanting to switch and change our programming. And then there's also something called being habitual about it, or being in a constant space of being in love. So I'm going to give you the contrast of both and to show you how that can be shifted for your own life and for also the Twin Soul journey. What has occurred on the Twin Soul journey is my beloved sweet troubadour, Chris, and I'm going to read this specifically here so that you can understand what this is all about in automatic programming. For the last 4.5 years, within the stages 3, 4, and 5 of the crises and runner dynamic and testing, what the deeper issues that have to do with those 3 stages or phases is that it brings up all of the automatic programming within you, those indoctrinational programs of what you think relationships are to you, any past hurts, any past wounds, anything that you have been free from healing that you feel that you've healed on your own, that you now are going to be healing within your twin soul relationship. And this can also occur with soulmate relationships on certain levels, as well as other relationships too. So this wisdom is for twin soul union and also for everyone. And so within that, when it comes up of indoctrinational programming, usually what happens is that the majority of the time we are running our subconscious programs. About only 5% of the time we are in conscious programming or being in the now, being in the moment. And here is an example from my beloved twin soul, from Chris, of a letter that he wrote to me back on June 20th of 2010. And in this letter, it says that, talking about my intent to move back home, and that he writes that the conclusion of my coming back home had to do with just him. And his letter says that this conclusion comes with ample supporting data, particularly via emails, the majority of which have emphasized my not being in love with you and your persistent fantasy that somehow I am. Regardless of my clarity informing you that I'm not nor never was in love with you, there is a continued energy being directed at me, and somehow if you come here, I will connect with you. This email officially documents and makes clear that upon your arrival, Here at home, my desire and right is that there be no physical contact with me. This particularly means that there is no coming to my place of my dwelling place, nor invading my privacy, nor do I want phone calls or text messages. It is a free world, and thus you are free to move about if the governments allow it. An essential part of that freedom is my liberty without being harassed in any way I deem to be uncomfortable. And so he says that this letter will be, on file and whatnot, and then he puts a PS in it saying that the reason that I have not been totally blocked is because we are of the same faith, which requires as much as possible to assist others. Perhaps it should be 100% block. Apparently, our spreading the science of mind teachings is not occurring much due to this obstacle. Now, this is an example, this letter is of complete automatic programming, and the reason that I am bringing this to you is because since that time of this letter on September 20th of 2010, Chris has completely invalidated this letter. Yet in his automatic programming, he has run about town, and I'm sure those of you who know us personally have received this letter from him as his supposed proof that this is why he's blocked me and that this is why he has no contact with me. And those of you who have received this letter and have heard Chris's words of wisdom about this are only hearing the one side of the story. Now, if you have been paying attention to any of my videos on YouTube here, as well as anything I've said over the last several years on air on Michael Carbone's radio show, many things, Chris has violated this very letter that he writes here. Okay, in fact, he violated it within the first 2 days that I came home. When I came home here, the first 2 days, I went to a mutual friend of ours' CD release concert, a spiritual center here in town, and came by his place afterwards. And we hung out in his kitchen together for a time, and then he drove me back home to my place. Since that time, and as I have talked about in this, in the many videos I've done here on YouTube, there are over 10,000 plus text messages from him text messaging me, even recently just text messaging me, asking me for my address as to where he could come over to bring me a birthday present, since my birthday was a few weeks ago. We've worked together on music together. He has called me and serenaded me with songs. He invited me over to his place after his concert in August last year. We made out up at the mountain at a gig that he had, and I was already there covering a music festival that was up there, and he came there to do a gig later that night, and we ended up making out in front of his car. He invited me to satsang at his place about a month, not even a month, about 2 weeks, I think it was, after this letter was written, in which there have been many people who were there. Many people who have seen us physically together at his concerts have been in my physical presence when he has text messaged me and called me. I helped him out with his concert in August 2010. Him and another friend of mine, a mutual friend of ours, were sitting and doing a silent auction for him in front of a local food store. There are many, many things. I've been over to his place in which he has made stew and has personally fed me his stew. The day that he had his eye surgery, I came by and brought him some flowers and a healing rock that I made, in which he kissed me and gave me back the ring here that I wear, to give that back to me. And he told me that he loved me that day. He also gave me this, which is the world, and basically said, never let it be said, baby, that I don't give you the world. That night that I was referring to, the first night that we were together, just after I came home, he gave me this, which actually used to hang on the front of his music school. The night that we spent making out when we were up at the mountain doing the gig together, I ended up driving him back home to his place because he was so, as he calls it, shit-faced drunk, that he could not drive home. And I took his car back to my place, and a couple of hours later, picked him up for his gig that day and helped him set up and take down the gig, carrying heavy equipment and whatnot, and we were together. We also had brunch together at that same gig a week before that, in which a mutual friend of ours had joined us. So there have been many instances, and this is why I'm sharing all of this, because this letter here that I just read to you is all coming from Chris's automatic programming. And he is attempting to convince himself, myself, and others of this automatic programming and expecting those people to buy into that. Now, if anyone knows us personally and has been around us, knows that he obviously broke this letter so many times over, it's not even funny. Okay, and what this is it's coming from the automatic indoctrinational programming, which also has deeper origins, which has to do with things having to do with his former relationships and his fears, and some other things that happened in his past. And so all of this is coming up as indoctrinational programming. And what has happened in those moments is two things. One is I throw back the mirror of his indoctrinational programming to him because he calls me delusional, saying that all of these things didn't happen, never mind that there were witnesses in a lot of cases for this. He went so far at one point is to tell a mutual friend of ours that the photos that I have of us that are on my Facebook page and on our website and whatnot, that those photos were photoshopped. And I found that really funny actually because of the fact that I told this mutual friend of ours, would you mind telling that to another mutual friend of ours who is the one who took those pictures? Another mutual friend who took that picture, they can't be photoshopped, okay? But this is what happens in the indoctrinational programming is that from that fear, you will say and do things within that fear, and you actually believe that they are true. And then he comes back at me saying that I'm supposedly delusional and in fantasy that he's not in love with me. And if you've watched the videos, you will know of the many love letters that he's written to me. He also wrote a letter to me a couple of years ago in which he had said that he knows what namaste truly means. And that when he says namaste to me, that it means that he's saying, I love you. So just recently, about a week ago, I have a text message from him that says, I would say namaste to you, but you would project that as a lie because he's basically trying to say that, I'm saying it's a lie of what namaste means. Now, I know what namaste really means. I know it means that I honor the love and light within you as, the Sanskrit word it is. However, because he wrote that letter to me and said what it means personally between us, he very well knows that when he says namaste to me, that to me will always trigger within me the fact that he's saying, I love you. And yet he attempts to call me delusional and call me in fantasy, and then he tries to get other people to believe his indoctrinational programming. So these are all examples of automatic programming of things that come up. Now, for me on my end, some of the things that Chris did and said and whatever activated within me some indoctrinational programming that I was to shed of the fear that I had about Steve. And I shared that in my other videos, when I talked about Song of the Princess and how that came up. And so I did some pretty, crazy things, in that sense, being in that indoctrinational program of fear. Okay, and so we have all of these programmings that we are just automatically playing, that when someone pushes a button and comes to us with something in life, we respond from that automatic programming rather than from being in love. So how do we shed those automatic programmings? Again, as I shared, we can do this when being in hypnosis. We can also do something that's called EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, incorporating that, which is where we stimulate bioenergetically certain things and places within the body that will release that energy from within the body. Massage is also very good to do that with, in which we release those automatic programmings. But the one thing that I have found that has helped me the most in my own journey, and also in my journey with Chris, in helping to shift those automatic programmings, is being love. And what do I mean by this? I've spoken about this in other videos, in being love as in being as God sees. There's another aspect to this, and this is particularly for twin soul relationships and all romantic relationships. And that is, if you can take a moment, and then it expands out, to other aspects of life. So I invite you to take a moment now and to just remember when you were in love. Doesn't matter who it was with, just take a moment when you can remember to a time when you were totally and completely in love. Really feel that within you right now in this moment. And in that moment of feeling in love, some questions I have to ask you. Were you sick? Was life horrible? Were things really bad in your life? The answer to all of those questions is no. When we are in a moment of being in love, we know very clearly that all of life is beautiful. We are free from being sick. From a romantic standpoint, we may have made love all the time. There's no sensation of hunger. We are totally in the flow and being in the moment. And that is where the key is for your romantic relationships, all romantic relationships, for the twin soul relationship, and for all aspects of your life, is getting into that space and staying and being in that space of being in love. Now, that may sound fantasy, that may sound, a bit crazy. I would invite you to delve into some of Bruce Lipton's work on this, because he has some recent books that he has done, and a new recent book that's getting ready to come out actually by May of next year. But if you Google search him or YouTube search him, on some recent videos that he's done, he talks about being in this space of being in love. And when we are in that space of being in love, and we can create that space in each moment of being in love, what happens is in our relationship, that is the key to staying in love. That is the key to taking indoctrinational moments like that letter that I was referring to of Chris's earlier, and those moments of his constantly saying, I'm not in love with you, although he's written he's in love with me, he's said it, and whatnot, and transforming that back into it. So I will always come back to him, as I've said in my previous videos, with, you're amazing, you're wonderful, I love you. But I will also remind him of how much in love he really is with me, despite his objections. And the reason is because when we listen to the heart, we can hear beyond the words. There was a quote I just recently saw on Facebook somewhere. I believe it's by Marianne Williamson, in which it speaks of, and I'm paraphrasing it, but it speaks to the fact of that we can see things as one of two things, either love or a call for love. And when we're in that indoctrinational programming of spewing out that perpetual unconscious programming, subconscious programming that's going on the majority of our lives, we are in that space of a call for love. Okay, we're screaming out to be loved and to be loved. And yet we are trapped, we feel, trapped in that prison, if you will, of that subconscious programming. And so the key and the way out of that is to continuously practice or be in habituation, praxis, as we call it in Sanskrit, be in a praxis of being in love continuously. Because when you are in love, you are totally in the moment, and that's where imagination and creation, that's where song is born. Any artist who is a musician, as my beloved sweet troubadour is, knows that when you are totally in the moment, you are being in love. You are in the moment of that song, in the moment of that creation of that song, and you are being in love. You are in love with that song. You are in love with what's flowing through you. Basketball stars and hockey stars and people who are in sports and stuff call it being in the zone. Okay. Some call it just being in the flow. What that really is being in love. And so we're asked to continuously perpetuate and habituate that space of being in love, so that when we are in love and we're constantly falling in love with our beloved again and again and again, there's no room for automatic programming. You're just being here, right now, just like the Buddha. You're being in the moment, like Eckhart Tolle talks about, in being in the now. To really be in the now is to be in love. And so I invite you to utilize this in all of your relationships and expand that out. I mean, you could be in love with a flower, you can be in love with all of life, being in that space of infinite gratitude, and then that expands out into all of your creations in life. So it's not just about romantic relationships, or not just about the twin soul relationship, it's then for everything. Okay. And so it's being in love continuously that will shift this automatic programming, because when you continually do this and continually be in love and be in imagination and be in that space of creativity, what happens is you rewire the synapses within the brain, so that all that comes through then is being in love. And then there is no more automatic programming. And I came into that space months ago, actually, fully and completely within the twin soul union with my beloved. He's still going through the indoctrinational programming. And so we're still working through that part, because again, as I've said, on the twin soul journey, you're still two individuated beings, even though you share the same soul. So you both still have experiences that you are to shed, individually as well as together in sharing the same soul. So he is going through his own journey. And a mutual friend of ours just said to me the other day that he is going through some stuff. So I'm holding that space for him and simply being in love in each moment. And so that is the key to shifting your automatic programming. And you can do that through hypnosis. You can do that through just a constant habituation of practicing praxis of this in each moment. This is what the Buddha and what Jesus and what all the ascended masters mean when they say, be the change you wish to see in the world, when they also say, being in the now, being present and being in the moment. Because when you are being in love, you are very present. You are very much right there, right now, right here, right now. And there's nothing else around you other than being right here and right now. So in that moment, I say, I am in love with you. I am in love with all of life. And I thank you. Espado.